What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jay McLevin here with Celeste Marie Wilson on another edition of the Whiskey Hour podcast. And it's going to be a little bit darker than normal, but it should be a fun review of these two movies that we're going to talk about. First of all, Celeste, how was Valentine's Day? Did Josh hook you up?
Oh, I had a great time. I had a gig in Baton Rouge for Mardi Gras. So
Right.
I was working on Valentine's Day a little bit. But then, oh my gosh, by the time I got home, Jay, by the time I got back to the Airbnb, I was so tired. I just took like a 4-hour nap.
Hey, I don't blame you, man. Hey, you got to get that beauty rest when you can get it.
Oh my gosh, because it's like, it's not the singing that makes you tired, and it's not the people. It's not that like you're tired in a bad way. You're tired in a good way. It's kind of like that, after, have you ever been on like camp in the summer when you're a little kid?
Yeah.
Sleep during summer camp?
Well,
That's the kind of sleep I get after a show.
Yeah.
You just sleep hard.
I tried not to sleep at summer camp because them boys were, hey, listen, you sleep at summer camp and you don't know what you're going to wake up to. I remember even when I deployed in Afghanistan, we would play pranks on each other when people were sleeping. Shaving cream was a big thing. That was a big thing.
What was it?
Shaving cream. We poured shaving cream on people's faces. Oh, I bet it was. I don't know, man. Boys, I guess boys might be a little bit different than girls. I don't know. Maybe, do y'all play pranks on each other? I know guys do.
No, we talk about our feelings and then we go to sleep, Jay.
Feelings. My son-in-law likes to talk about feelings. I say, you got the wrong person. Let me go get mail real quick. I gotta go get mail because I don't know. I'm just old school like that. But I took Mel to bingo. We played bingo for Valentine's Day, and they had assortments of little like cupcakes, and they had little gift bags, and it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool. And I don't know what they think though, because the left side of the bingo hall is for smokers, the right side of the bingo hall is for non-smokers. And I asked the lady, so is there like some sort of invisible force field that runs down the middle that keeps that smoke over there? Because I feel like once you start smoking, the whole damn thing becomes smoking. I
kind of feel that way too.
I kind of,
Also, no judgment, but is the bingo game so hard you gotta smoke in the middle?
No, but them old ladies, they love those Capris. They love those Capris. You get a little Capri 120. Hey, that's a bingo. That's an N64. It's weird. It's crazy. But you know what, though? But I have a good time because I'm a very big people watcher. And Melanie is a very big people watcher. And I just like to watch people and their environment. And of course, I'm dabbing like a chef. I got like, I'm just dabbing like this, and that's a good dab, and that's a good dab. But I did not win. Sadly to say, I got one number away from $1,100. One number. And some lady behind me won it. And she won like 3 other times. So she's like a professional bingo person.
Dang.
But the story of it was, though, we had a good time. We ate crawfish, and it was a good time. It was good. Now, I don't typically eat crawfish, but I say, you know what? I'm going to do it. Melanie wants to do it. I'm going to do it. And I ate crawfish, and it wasn't bad. I actually, towards the end of it, but it's a lot of work. Crawfish peeling, that's a lot of work.
It is. You're right.
I'm just saying. But it was a good time.
I had breakfast for dinner. Pancakes and eggs, and you cannot beat scrambled eggs with syrup on it, Jay.
I don't know. Better. I always put hot sauce on my scrambled eggs. I don't know if I've ever done syrup.
Try maple syrup on some salted eggs.
All right. I'll give it. I mean, I'm always down for trying new things. I really, if I can eat crawfish, I can certainly eat some scrambled eggs with some syrup. So I'll give it a shot.
You gotta salt your eggs. You gotta salt.
You like? Okay. Yeah, but I don't like a lot of salt. Just a little bit of salt.
A little salt, a little syrup. Your life's gonna be changed. That or I'm an elf.
Well, because you said I'm gonna try it, but all right, man, let's get into this thing. So, for those of you that, just so we're tracking, if you want to check out Celeste Marie Wilson's stuff, you go to CelesteMarieWilsonMusic.com. And you can get all of her dates where she's performing, and you can also get her merchandise and music and anything you want to do with Celeste Marie Wilson. You can find it right there on that website. Make sure you give it a shout out. I think you're gonna like her stuff. And yeah, man, she's cooking it up. And I learned something, Celeste. And I didn't know if you knew this, because I certainly didn't know this. But yesterday evening, I got a text from Leah Stevenson, who's the broker for my house, right? And she was also at the house barbecue when you and Carson Clay played, right?
Yeah.
And dark-haired girl. But anyway, she texted me. She's like, Jay, I just saw Celeste was at the Magnolia photo shoot. I'm like, yeah, she just did that. So do you know that my brother and sister-in-law own that farm?
Oh my gosh, small world.
I'm like, man, that is too. I'm gonna tell her about that, because that really is. It's a small world when you start looking at things. She's like, yeah, I recognize that. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny. It's how small the world we live in.
Everybody knows everybody, and people don't realize it, but the world is a lot smaller than you think.
And that really is a beautiful place to do photo shoots on.
Oh, it was gorgeous. Me and my sister went out there. We had a great time. We got some good photos done. There's so much room there too.
Right. And that truck was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it was super cool.
That old school truck. Yeah, that was pretty dope.
It was super cute. I really liked it. I was like, dang. From my understanding, it's like a lot of couples do stuff there and like baby photos and stuff. But for professional shoots too, I think it's just as good.
Yeah, if you want those open field type shoots or that vintage truck shoots, yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Especially if you're into country music. I mean, that's perfect for country music. Or Southern rock in this case, because I know Southern rock kind of blends a little bit with some of those same motifs, right? So
yeah, Southern rock country. If you're Southern rock country artist, like I think you need a photo shoot there, especially if you're in the area.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. I like that. And again, if you haven't seen that, if you go to Celeste Marie Wilson on Facebook as well, you can see those photo shoots. They are all over the place. Well, we're going to jump into this. Celeste, we got brought up Bruce Springsteen's Deliver Me From Nowhere. That one was a movie. And yeah, I'm gonna let you start this off, and then I'll chime in after you give your take on it. But go ahead and talk about that movie.
So as Jay knows, we've talked about Atlantic City before, but the cover done by the band. And I won't spoil what we're talking about later, but in the other the documentary we watched, it talked a lot about depression and everything. And I just watched this movie with my boyfriend, and I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect thing to send to Jay. I was like, it's like this kind of cool insight as to how, my favorite songs he made were created. And I think the cool we've talked about this a lot, this stripping back a song to kind of the bones of it.
Right.
And just getting to see Bruce Springsteen's journey in this film, of almost like a lot of times artists will create music that's very personal to them. And when they do that, it's almost like a rediscovery of the art. And so watching him kind of like get that spark of inspiration and have to work through all of these kind of demons he's had in his past, but then creating something beautiful that doesn't need anything said about it for it to succeed. I thought that was super powerful.
Yeah.
Super. Oh my gosh. And the actor in it was amazing.
Yeah, very much so. I did not realize that the guy that played Bruce actually did his own singing. Like, that wasn't Bruce singing. That was him singing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Which I thought was even crazier.
That is
crazy. And I mean, of course, he went took singing classes and vocal classes and things like that. But he had no help from Bruce on it. Now, Bruce did see the final cut before it went out. So I'm sure he had to give his approval on it. But the point is, that guy did all that singing just through vocal lessons. I mean, that was all him, which is even harder because Bruce Springsteen's voice is not exactly, in my opinion, the easiest voice to do.
No, it's not.
You know, so
That's
I was really
crazy.
impressed by that. But
That's super impressive. I didn't realize that.
and you know, there was
I
one
thought they
part
just
where
were
he
using
sings, you
like,
can see all his vocal cords. I was like, wow, that is insane.
that
That is
is
insane.
crazy.
But yeah,
Yeah,
but it was super dark. I didn't realize how dark Bruce's life was. You know, it was
yeah,
dark.
it was a lot darker. When I started watching it, I didn't realize what it was gonna be about. And at first it's kind of like the flashbacks were throwing me off when we started the movie.
Yeah.
But then as it kind of went on, it all made sense and it came together in like this really, really beautiful way. But I will say at the start, it took me like probably about 20 minutes into the movie to get into it because the cutbacks were so bang bang. But
Right.
I've got to say, it was a pretty dark movie.
I really liked how they kind of went back and then the present, they went back and the present. It was kind of like they chose different pieces to go back to that reflected currently where he was at. So it kind of explained a little bit why he was this way because they gave the cutback as to what led up to that. You know,
Right.
he did not have a good relationship with his father, like at
Mm-mm.
all. Like
No, he did not.
that was a rough one. You know, I didn't realize that Bruce had to go into a bar at like 8 years old and say, "Hey, Dad, Mom said it's time to go." And he's like, "Hey, wait outside." And I'm like, "Man, that is so." As a kid, that's got to be the weirdest thing, you know.
And that's hard, you know. That has to be hard.
I mean, I couldn't imagine doing that. I could
Yeah,
imagine
I couldn't either.
the feeling that you would have had to go through to tell your dad, "Hey, you know that had to been rough on Bruce to even have to go into that bar and do that." And I
Yeah.
don't even know what the dad was saying because you know the dad was an alcoholic, so he probably didn't even at the time. You know, his feelings were devoid of that because he was so into the alcohol that I think it took him away from it. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
But it also you see where Bruce, his dad, goes in there. Obviously, they've been fighting him and his mom, and he goes there and does shadow boxing to try to toughen up Bruce. And Bruce is not he's not that kind of guy. Bruce is not a violent person like at all. And even he tells his dad, "Look, Dad, I don't like fighting. That's not what I do." And he's like, "Hey, you're a toughen up," And then of course he slaps him real hard at the end of it. But it just kind of shows you that Bruce really never saw what love looks like. I don't think he ever felt or even knew how to love because he had never really seen his family show love like that. And I think
Right.
when you see him eventually get together with that one fan's sister, and then they kind of get into a sort of a relationship together, but then they kind of go their separate ways because he's like, I don't know how to love you. I love you, but I don't know how to love you probably the way you would want to be loved. He just loves the best way he knows how. And you really see it's hard for him to form relationships, over a long period of time.
Right.
It,
That's
it, was,
like,
it was crazy.
it was crazy, but it was really nice to see in the film his manager and how he was like his work partner, but also his friend.
Very much so.
I was like,
Very
that
much
is a
so.
very good manager.
You know, his music was so intense. I didn't realize how intense Bruce was with his music, but his music was very, very intense. And it was a point where, he was gonna make Nebraska. Nebraska was just supposed to be a one-off, right? It was just supposed to be an acoustic version of this darker side that he wanted to go into. And it really didn't have your radio hits. It didn't have any of that. It was just more of Bruce saying, I want to explore this one specific side and then we'll go back to whatever. And the record company, if you remember that part, the record company did not want him to do that. They said, there's no hits in this. How are we going to put this out? And Bruce is like, I don't want no press. I don't want no radio play. I don't want no singles. We're just going to put this album out, let it breathe, and we'll see what happens. And, from a business standpoint, that probably wasn't the best move. But from an artistic standpoint, I understand where he was coming from.
Well, I think it's also hard if you're writing about something that personal
Right.
to commercialize it at the same level. Things like Born in the USA were.
Right. I thought it was interesting that he went out and bought this 4-track recording device, set it up in his house, and then one guy was playing a little bit of the keyboard, and then he was playing the acoustic. But it was so, like you said, it's not my finished product, but here's all these ideas, and then let's see how we're gonna run with this. And they're like listening to it, they're like, what are we gonna do with this? And so then, but you kind of see the record company was trying to push Bruce a certain way, and Bruce was like, it's not that I'm not going to go that way, but right now in this album, I want to go this way,
Right.
And you can see it. You can see that it was taking a toll on him. Like he really, and that's where you saw the manager aspect, which what you're talking about was when the manager goes in and says, nope, this is how it's going to be done. This is what Bruce wants. This is the sound he's going for. They try to put an echo. They try to do some modifications. He didn't like it. He's like, nope, we're going to strip it back. This is the way I want it. I don't want multi-layers. I don't want it to be overdone. I just want a simple acoustic and maybe a piano, and we're going to call it good on that, which is what I like. Like, I'm into that kind of thing. Now, I think as I get older in my musical taste, I kind of gravitate to the less layers and stuff and the more simplistic stripped down. That's kind of where I'm going at now in my life. And so I really appreciated Nebraska. I didn't really know much about it, but I actually went out and bought the dang album because I wanted it, but because it really was good. The music on there is just it's kind of like I go down to my fire pit, I'll light up a cigar, I'll play some Bruce, Nebraska. It'll be midnight, about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I have my little light on, and it's just I call it Jason time. And it just kind of zone out and you let the world go by the wayside, and you just enjoy what
you're listening to.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been doing a lot lately is just listening to music and just kind of, I call it my meditation moment. It's kind of like when I meditate and all my best ideas kind of somehow formulate during that time period. And I think that's what Bruce was doing. I think Bruce kind of wanted that that was like his meditation, like his music, or that simplistic was like his meditation type stuff,
No, I agree. I think so too.
And I thought it was interesting when they gave him Born to the USA, but then the way they did it at first, the way they gave it to him and the way he recorded it, but then they gave it back to the people, and then they kind of put all the instrumentation into it. And then when you hear the final product, you're like, man, that's wild. Anybody listens to Born to the USA, if you're not patriotic or like going crazy on it, I don't know what to tell you, but it's really a good song, and it sets up that whole album.
It does. Yeah, I knew about Nebraska and that album before I knew about Bruce Springsteen's album Born in the USA. Okay. I had it flipped. I think some of it is just because, I was not alive then, but so I found about it backwards. But I got into Bruce Springsteen because of the song Atlantic City.
Okay, yes.
And so I gravitated towards the Nebraska album first. So when I started the movie, I was expecting, because I hadn't read anything about it, I was expecting it to be about Born in the USA or about him coming up. But he was already, I really liked how they started where he already was. Because we have so many, climbing to the top stories and the struggle. But, what happens when you're already there?
Right. Very much so. And then where do you go from that? I agree. I like how he comes off stage. He's in his dressing room. The guy looks like he's exhausted. His manager comes in. He's like, I need 5. I don't care what these people want. I need 5. And you can just tell that he was emotionally like he was drained, like he was done. You know? And that's how you give it all out. Like, I've heard so many people talk about going to Bruce Springsteen concerts, and they'll say you'll be at that concert for like 3 hours, and he doesn't stop. Like, he's like one song after one song after one. Like, it just goes one long 3-hour session, And I find that to be incredible because I don't even know if I could sing the way Bruce sings for 3 hours. I think I would be emotionally and physically done.
You'd lose your voice.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because I don't know how you can scream like that and not lose your voice. But unless that's just how he has trained himself, and maybe I guess like anything else, you get used to it. I guess I don't know.
Because I bet it's the vocal muscles, and the longer you do it, you probably build up more of a resistance to it.
Going back to his dad real quick. I thought it was very beautiful at the end of the movie. He comes off stage and then like your dad's in your dressing room. He goes in the dressing room, he sees his pop sitting down. His pop's emotional. He's like, Bruce, and I want to talk to you. And he's like, I want you to sit on my lap. And Bruce is kind of like, you want me to do what? And he's like, yeah, I want you to sit on my lap. And he's like, I've never sat on your lap. He goes like, I know, but I want you to sit on my lap. And so Bruce goes over there and he placates and he sits on his lap. And his dad kind of pours into him. You know, I think you can see that moment of regret over the life that he had around Bruce. And so it's kind of like the come in the full circle moment. And they're like, hey, the past is the past. It's, hey, Dad, you know, it's water under the bridge. We're done. And you finally see that love between Bruce and his father at the very end of it all.
Yeah.
You know, which I thought was beautiful. I like how they tied that in at the very end of it. You know, and I think Bruce in his life probably appreciated that part of his dad, you know, and I think that really completed him as a person. The only thing they left untied was I don't ever know if he ever went back to that young lady he was dating, or was that just I guess that was just done and over. I'm guessing.
I don't know.
Because they never really went back and said anything about that.
No,
they just kind of left that one dangling. But I looked at my wife and I was looking at Mel and I'm like, so what happens? Does he go back? Does he not go back? I'm confused. And so
did he get back with her?
I need to know. I need to write to people and say, I just need to know the end. Just tell me the end. But no, I thought it was interesting. Though one thing I learned about Bruce was in his music, he was very insecure about his things. But he was also very intense, you know, about his things. And I think that intensity and that insecurity, you know, he didn't. I thought that was one of the greatest things about Nebraska was because you saw the vulnerability side of Bruce in that album, which normally you don't see the vulnerability or that insecurity in the rest of his music. You know,
no.
I mean, you don't think a guy that's called the Boss would be like that or had that kind of a moment, right?
Right.
But I know in that album, the biggest thing I took away from that was that he was really striving for the imperfect sound. He didn't want it to be perfect. He didn't want it to be polished. He just wanted it to be raw and let all the emotion come out of it, you know, and which I appreciate that in artists.
I appreciate that too. Like I said, I really thought it was cool. It was almost like this. It almost felt like in Nashville they have songwriter rounds where you'll sit down and it'll go one person, the second person, the third person, and each person will sing a song, just them and their guitar. And it almost felt kind of like that, where it was like a stripped down, listen to the lyrics, really hear what he has to say kind of song.
Absolutely. I'll tell you guys, we'll wrap up the Bruce Springsteen side of it, but if you have not seen Deliver Me from Nowhere, I highly encourage you to go watch it. It definitely will give you a different perspective on Bruce Springsteen than maybe you've had beforehand. And also, what I found out was that movie was actually based on the making of Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska by Warren Zanes. So if you're more of a reader and not necessarily a movie watcher, you can go read that book. It is pretty much exactly what you're going to see in that movie. So you can also read it as well. But all right, moving on to Blue October. And I did, and you know what was interesting? I had seen Get Back Up several times before, and when you sent me Bruce Springsteen, I'm like, wonder how this is going to tie in, because Celeste always ties her stuff in with my stuff, and I'm like, I wonder how this is going to tie into it. And then of course, after I watched the movie, I'm like, okay. I said that's pretty good. And I think Melanie was saying, she's like, yeah, she I think she got you, Jay. I'm like, yeah, she did it because they both artists really, really have dark sides, and both artists really go through a lot of hardships in their upbringings, and both artists really struggle for mental health. And those are the three biggest tie-ins between Bruce and between Justin. So Justin Furstenfeld is actually the lead singer of Blue October. And I remember there was a part in that movie, Celeste, where they talk about that white van. You see them traveling in a white van. And when I was probably about your age, maybe 21, 22 years old, I think I was, I went to Galveston to see Blue October, and they were playing down in Galveston. And after they were done, I saw them get in this white van, and I walked up to the white van just to say, hey, I enjoyed the concert. And the guy rolled down the window, and you could just smell the marijuana just float out from that van. Gosh. I mean, they were blazing up like a champ in that van.
Stinky.
So It's very sticky. But and of course, as you know, that band really battled with a lot of substance abuse. Particularly the guy that played the violin, which was his best friend in high school, and Justin himself. So I know y'all talk more about that, but Blue October, man, get back up. What'd you think?
I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of drugs. I was like, every time I just kind of was like, I mean, getting into it, I think would make it really hard to get out of it, obviously. But I think that the kind of the mentality around the arts, the community built in the arts sometimes pushes people towards that, because like if you play a show and you're playing a show at a bar, they give you a $40 tab,
Right.
while you're playing. And it's tiny things like this that people don't think are a problem. But it's like if you've got an artist playing every other night, they're getting a $40 tab, and now they feel like they got to use it. It's like that kind of stuff does eventually start to add up. And then within the culture of the arts, there's kind of this thing of, I've seen a lot of artists kind of be like, what am I going to write about if I'm not sad? Right. So I've seen people like purposely not get help.
Right.
Because it's like, I mean, this is how you make a living. This is how you do, all these things. But that's so toxic and not true. And so it's always so hard to watch these documentaries and movies. And it's always wonderful when the people do get help, because you want, it's a quality of life issue. But the struggle to get there, because there's not a lot of break. There's not a lot of time to sit down and talk. And it is very stressful that it's hard to tell, are you just really, really stressed because you're just in front of a crowd of like 6,000 people, or is something else wrong?
Yeah.
And all of that stuff was like, oh my goodness. It was a lot. I was like, I was glad he got help in the end though, because I think it was super, super important, and I'm happy he's able to be a part of his kid's life and all these other things. But oh my goodness, it was like such a long time without help.
A long time. You're right.
A long time. It was not
right.
It was not like a year or two. It was a while of no real help. And other than his mother and his like brother noticing, not really anybody else noticing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, mental health can really take you down some crazy avenues. Of course, it was later diagnosed that he was actually bipolar, and with bipolar, you're either way up here or you're way down there. There's no real ever true middle ground. Now they have medication that can balance you out and keep you in that middle ground.
Right.
But without medication, you're like this the whole time. And when he went through the music, when his band took off, I don't think they were ready for all the things that were going to come with it. Just all the popularity. And there was a time when I remember he got signed, and he talks about he got signed, and Doug Morris, which is executive with Universal, when they signed him, he's like, Justin, you're going to be the next superstar. You're going to have all these things happen to you. And then they go out and they bring out their first album, and it's sold maybe 1,500 copies. It didn't really do all that great. And so then they dumped him. Like, they just dropped him. It was done. It was over. And that really messed with him, because he went from the highest of high to like literally like a month or two later, and he's at the bottom picking himself up off the ground. That really messes with the person, And I thought it was interesting when he came out with another album independently, and he was playing in a club, and a whole bunch of record executives, including Doug Morris, attended that gala, and he's on stage and he's singing this song, and he gets right up in Doug Morris's face and basically says, "Fuck you." And he talks about it, and Doug Morris is just like, what do I got to do to get this guy back? How do I get this guy back? And his manager is telling him, like, how do you go back to your ex-girlfriend? Who can
Yeah.
do that? But he does. Eventually, he does re-sign with him, and they go on to make all kinds of music, you know. But if you look at his life, if you look where the way in which he was going, it got to a point where his relationship with his brother was almost destroyed. The band was just like, he's in and out of rehab. We're not really doing a whole lot. What am I supposed to do? Do I wait on him? And so the lead guitarist, I think, winds up having to make a hard decision to leave the band. But I think he was the only one that really kind of left. Everybody else kind of stayed with him. But, it is true, man. When you're in your darkest of dark places, your best music does come out sometimes. And that's why they don't call it the 27 Club for nothing. Janice, Jimmy, Jim, Kurt Cobain, all the great ones. Elvis Presley in his later years, Johnny Cash, went through the alcoholic phase and the pills and all that with his drug. They all have that vice. That's the one common thread between a lot of famous musicians is they all have that one vice that really just takes them down. I mean, even up to Stone Temple Pilots, Scott Weiland, and Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington. I mean, those are three great 90s rock bands that really had that same issue. They all kind of, and Shannon Hoon, I remember from Blind Melon, went down that same path. I mean, I don't know what it is about it, but it takes a lot to really handle that level of fame, that level of energy that thrusts you that quickly, and you're trying to grab on and hold on and make sense of it all. I kind of understand. And Justin got to a point where he thought, hey, if I take some acid, I can expand my mind. I can expand this and this and this and start creating even more music and left, right, up, and down. I think he said he went on a date with his girlfriend, and he dropped like 2 hits of acid, and they're sitting around the campfire, and he starts like, why is there a horse behind you? And, he's like freaking her out, and, it's, again, I think that's when you really started to see the wheels come off the tires. I remember, he married that girl named Sarah, and Sarah was actually brought over by one of their friends to just come hang out. And she's actually, I think, the one that really, really got him out of where he was at emotionally and his drug dependence, And so, and of course, they had their daughter Blue, which I met Blue. She's super nice girl. Then they had Sadie with Sarah. I mean, good girls. And you can see that he really wants to get back into being a family. He wants to get back into, being who he was. Because even his mom says, Justin, this is not you. This is I know you're here physically, but you're not here. Yeah. And that's why when you look at Blue October, that band had went through so much turmoil. I remember when I think it was when Foiled, which had, I think, Dirt Room on it, when that album first came out, that kind of, I mean, it got huge, and he wound up breaking his leg in the pre-show or the sound checks or whatever. They wound up having to cancel the tour. He rehabs, he falls on the floor and re-breaks his leg. So then he's down even more time, and that's when the depression really started to settle in, and people started to say, "Hey, are they going to be able to make it back to where they were, and get that momentum back?" Because they couldn't tour, so they lost a lot of opportunity, But sometimes I think, even though a lot of bad things happen, a lot of good things could come out of it. And you look where he's at now, and the rise from the ashes now. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it really is. It's incredible.
I agree. I think it's the that quote from Noah Kahn from one of his songs that we were talking about the other day, that all lights that turn off can be turned on again.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
I think it's that. And I think it's also there is beauty in learning how to write and create in normalcy.
Yeah.
It's like there is a shock and something big, a big emotion, a big down, a big drama, and those are important to write too. But it's also, I think, just as important to write about things like you know, becoming a father, becoming a mother, becoming this. And that's something I really liked that, you know,
Yeah.
we see with like Willie Nelson and some of these other artists where it's the small
Right.
parts of life too. But sometimes we get so caught up in whatever was the last hit or whatever was big last. And now you're trying to one up that instead of trying to write about being a human, that you get caught just looking at that thing. And then if you get there, how are you supposed to do anything? You know, how are you supposed to make things? How are you supposed to create and make art if now there's all this pressure on it?
There really was, yeah, you know, and one of the things he talks about, so they wound up holding a big intervention for him, and the violinist was there, and then you know everybody's saying things to Justin, and the violinist isn't saying anything, and then you go on to find out he's like, how do I say something to him when I literally just did 4 lines of cocaine before I walk up in this intervention?
Yeah.
He goes, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be the biggest hypocrite ever. But I find it interesting that when Justin does go to rehab, it wasn't very long afterwards that the violinist, his wife, says to him, hey, look, I know what you're doing too. And you either go get help, or I'm going to leave you as well. And then, of course, Sarah, Justin's wife, says, if you don't go to rehab, I can't be around you either. I can't have Sadie around this lifestyle that you're living. And so both of those guys get into rehab together. But I thought it was interesting what Justin says about how he was able to come to grips with the addiction and really get his life back on track. And one of the things he says was, you know, step one, when you go into rehab, they say you have to be able to recognize that your life, you are not able to manage your life. Your life is unmanageable. And he thought about it. He's like, wait a minute, and he's like, well, yeah. When he starts reflecting on all the things that have happened, he's like, yeah, my life is definitely unmanageable. So he got past step one. But then step two is they say you have to find a higher power. That's like you have to find a higher power, because you cannot be in control of your life. You need a higher power that can guide you on how to live your life. And so he's like, okay. So he goes out in this field or whatever and says, okay, I'm here. Where's the higher power? Who are you? And so he's talking and there's nothing. And finally he says, you know, just show me a sign. Show me a sign and make it simple for me. Make it to where a dumb person can understand what I need to do. And he sees this bee. It starts out as a bee and he turns it into a wasp. And there's this bee flying around. He goes, you know, I'm afraid of bees, so that they sting you, you know, it hurts. So then he turns it into a wasp. And he goes, and I saw this wasp, and the wasp was banging its head to get in the can. And he goes, why would you do that? Why would you go into a can where thousands of your homies have died? And then he thinks, oh my God, is it really that simple? Is it really that simple to get my life back on track? You know, I'm beating my head up against these drugs and these walls, and I'm like, and he's like, why would I do the same thing over and over thinking I'm going to get better when all these people have died doing it? And ultimately, he winds up the story with he's at a group meeting, and this other young kid comes in and he goes, what is this? Some kind of cult stuff? And he goes, I was there once too when I first came here, young man, and I found my higher power in a Raid can. I was like, that is so awesome, right? That is so awesome. But it really is sometimes just that simple, right? And I think sometimes we tend to let things complicate our lives, and we don't see how simple things can be, you know. And I think, like you said, as an artist, you know, you got a lot of things coming at you. You know, you got the fame, right? Or you got the recognition and the fame that's going to come with that. That's one obstacle to challenge. Then you have your personal relationships. Then you have, you know, trying to avoid, like you said, the $40 tabs, people throwing drinks at you, this, that, and the other. So I think when you're in that limelight, you got all these things that are going to come at you, and you have to learn how to facilitate and learn how to stay clear of it to keep yourself straight, you know. And I think a lot of the greatest ones couldn't do that.
No, I mean, but it's like I think a very good example of someone who's been able to do it is Taylor Swift, like
Yeah,
genuinely.
right.
And it comes down to family support, um, and then I think making sure that you have a community around you, where you can talk to people.
Right.
And I
100%.
think we saw at the end of that documentary that Blue October, even though it didn't start that way, became a community where they can talk to each other about these difficult subjects.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, and the one thing I appreciate about Justin and his music, and if again, there's a book, I don't have it with me, it's called Crazy. I think it's called Crazy Things. In that book, every single song he does, he tells you how he wrote it and he tells you the full thing. And if you ever go to his concerts, he's a great storyteller. I mean, he's probably one of the better storytellers because he has no problems telling you about his life. He has no problems putting it all out there. He doesn't hide from it. He doesn't run from it. He embraces it, you know. And there's a lot of people, a lot of young kids that have really benefited off of his honesty and his openness. And like, you know, I was going through the same stuff, and he's actually putting it in, you know, out there for all of us to know that, hey, I'm not the only one going through this. Like, there's actually somebody else that goes through it. And I think that's what makes him relatable. Even when you go to his concerts, he's very relatable. You know.
Yes, I agree. And I think he's also, it had to take an inordinate amount of strength to be able to admit to so many people and to his own fans that, you know, in some ways he was wrong, you know?
Right.
Being able to do that shows a level of maturity and self-reflection I think very few people have. You know, being able to
Yeah.
sit in a documentary and be like, I was not acting correctly. I was not, you know, I mean, that's strong.
Yeah, one of the things that really impresses me is, you know, I had the opportunity to interview Chris Cornell in his dressing room. And before I went in there, his manager said, "Look, you can talk about anything you want to talk about. Just don't talk about the drug addiction. Don't mention anything about drugs. Just leave that off the table." And I'm like, okay. So I went in there and I did my interview, and you know, and then we left, you know, and things like that. But when it comes to Justin, when we got to go and talk to him, and we went to the sound check, and then he starts. You can ask him any question you want to ask him, and he was very open. You know, the whole meet and greet, even the meet and greet and things like that, was very much a storytelling experience. So I would tell you, if you go see Blue October, get the meet and greet package, because you will really get to see behind the scenes everything, and you can talk to him and ask questions, and it's a really good way to get to know him. And when you get to know him, it really puts when you actually see the concert itself, it really puts a whole different perspective on the concert, because he really does open up, and it's probably one of the best meet and greet experiences I think that I've had. It was really, really phenomenal. So Celeste, when we go, I'll make sure you get a meet and greet, because you need to go see that. I mean, it's really, really phenomenal.
I've never done any meet and greet for anything.
And most of them are kind of generic, whatever. And I don't always recommend doing it, because I think sometimes you're not really getting the experience out of it. But if you do, but with Blue October, and I know with Justin, the way he does it, it's a full-on experience. I mean, you get the music that he'll sound check with, but then he opens it up for I'll say about 35-minute Q&A session, and he'll talk to you, you talk to him, and it's a very long process before the concert even starts. So it's almost like two different experiences at the same show, and I think it's absolutely worth going and seeing it. It really, honestly, it'll definitely put it in different perspective for you.
That is super cool. That's cool that he has like that option to like hear all the behind the scenes and get to know him, because a lot of artists can't do that anymore. No. Or won't do it anymore.
Yeah, you know, and one of the things I know you like, and I like it too as well, is I like storytellers. I hate going to a concert where it's just track. All right, good night. One more track on encore, and then they're done. Not that I can't do it, but I like the artists that will tell you a little bit about the song and then go into the song, or they'll have some sort of a dialogue in between songs where you kind of get to know the artist as well as listen to their music.
Yes.
You know, I think it gives the concert a different vibe and a different feel. you know.
I agree.
So yeah, I think he does it really good. I think Taylor does it really good. It's just phenomenal. But I appreciate it, man. Hey, I had a good time. And I went back and watched Get Back Up yesterday, and man, it brought back a whole lot of like, man, I forgot about this, and this. So it was good to go back and see it again. But and I will tell you, have you heard the song? He sings the song in the documentary "Hate Me." "Hate Me" is probably one of my favorite songs by him. He does it live and he does it acoustic. Oh, she did?
Yeah, she did.
That's awesome. Your mom's probably about my demographic, so yeah, I wasn't surprised. I mean, because they're from Houston. I mean, they're from this area, so it would make sense that she probably know them or at least heard some of their music. But
she was like,
yeah,
she told me that she remembered it being a big song. I was
oh
like,
yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that in Dirt Room was a big one. Say It was a big one. I mean, he's had quite a few big ones. He just not Blue October. I think they just. It's kind of like a band that goes from 0 to 100, and then they go from 100 back to 0 with all the things that band went through. And now they're it's like the second chapter, if that makes sense. Like there've been like 3 different chapters of this band's legacy. And I think now I would say they're probably in the 3rd chapter. If you go back to 2008 and then you listen to where they are 2025, 26, it's a completely different band. It's a completely different vibe. Everything is just completely different, And so you can see the progression of the band as they go through the decades, and it's really cool. It's a good experience. But
that is cool. I love it when artists grow.
Yes, and I'm not gonna take too much of the time. I'm gonna get you out because I know you got things to do today. But again, hey guys, listen, make sure you check out Celeste Marie Wilson music.com. It will give you all the information where you can find her, as well as check her out, Celeste Marie Wilson, on Facebook, and you can see all of her videos that she's been posting, her photo shoots, and all that good stuff. I think you will enjoy it as much as we do. Celeste, anything you needed to say before we get out of here, young lady?
Oh, make sure to follow us. Make sure to follow the Whiskey Hour podcast. You forgot to say that, Jay.
Sometimes I let you take it.
Okay.
I got it.
Make sure to follow the Whiskey Hour podcast.
Yes, please follow the.
Turn on the little bell. Turn it on so you get the notifications for when we post.
Yes, like Celeste, my co-host said, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. It really does help us get out the content to you better. And again, we always appreciate all you guys hanging out with me and Celeste as we talk music. And I continue to grow. She continues to grow and stuff. And it just makes us better people.
It absolutely does.
I think so.
I think so too.
Getting better.
I get better too.
Getting better. All right, guys. We'll see you on the flip and the flip.